Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London, and this morning I'm looking at an excellent book again from Claritax, who are specialist tax publishers on areas of law which have a direct relevance to our business practices and any legal implications that might flow from the way we go about doing business. The book I'm looking at this morning is called the VAT Registration Handbook. It's been written by Graham Elliott. I'm recording this in the middle of 2015. This book came out last year, 2014, but I think it's well worth actually looking at the book now. What we've called the book, this is what it is here. We've given the title of our review the following. We've called it A Clear and Practical Explanation of the Rules for VAT Registration for Individuals in what is a really fiddly area of tax law. Now, this is the book. It's only a small book. It's a paperback. There's the spine and then there's the back. It's green cover. It runs to 150 pages. There is the back of it, an index. The index is actually paragraph number listed, so it's not page numbers, it's paragraph numbering. And as with this structure, you have the table of cases at the back and the statutes at the back, statutory instruments, primary legislation, and then we go into the main body copy. There are occasional, very small numbers of footnotes, nothing very much, but the paragraph numbering is the thing to bear in mind in this particular book. The front of it, there's the front cover, and then there are other titles from Claritax. They're well known to many people. I think they give an excellent service, details about Claritax there. And then there's a detail about Graham Elliott, who's a member of the tax practice in Withers LLP. Then there's a detail about the publishers again. Then there's a useful abbreviations area. There is a little bit of abbreviation in VAT matters. And then you've got a forward, which is very, very short. Then you go straight into the main table of contents there, running all the way through. You can see a total of 16 chapters. That's the last one. Then there's an introduction. Always read the introduction. He starts off, why write a book purely about VAT registration? To put it another way, a question put to me by one of my fellow VAT advisors was, is there really enough in VAT registration as a standalone subject for a book? The answer is yes. There we go. That's the information. The laws as stated at the 1st of March 2014. There are pros and cons of registering and a lot of information. Useful shaded boxes for examples. That will help you with some of the general problems you may have. There are abbreviations on the tax law itself, the actual Acts of Parliament, so be aware of that. And then there's another shaded box example there. As I say, I think it's a very important book if you feel you need to register for VAT. Now, the rules and the policy by successive governments has changed, because at one time very many people were registered for VAT who didn't need to be, and as a result it really did overburden what is a very, very bureaucratic system. Now, I'm not making any comments about the for and against VAT. It's a tax like any other tax, but what comes with the baggage is a massive amount of paperwork, attention to detail, a huge amount of work in what is actually not a particularly innovative area. In other words, it does drag businesses down, putting it bluntly, but however, it's there, we have to put up with it, so we have to know what to do. I would only question one thing, and that is the business of business is actually doing the business, is not doing lots of work for accountants. But the Parliament of the day has decided we have it, and that's where we are at the moment. So where do we go with the handbook, and what's it all about? This is what we say. Let's be clear right at the beginning. VAT registration is an absolute pain for some, but it has to be done and done properly to meet the statutory requirements, hence my earlier remarks. The subject of VAT registration may seem very straightforward to more experienced tax form fillers, but in reality it can be contentious and difficult, and HMRC's internal guidance on the subject runs to many hundreds of pages, which we have always found very difficult to understand and follow. So what do we get? We get this excellent book from Claritax, which does make it simple. The purpose right at the beginning is, why do we need it? Is there enough information that would require a book? The answer is yes. So in his excellent and practical volume from Claritax, Graham Elliott, who's from Withers Worldwide, takes readers through the complex maze of issues arising from it, sharing his wealth of practical experience to highlight the pitfalls and the planning opportunities in relation to the subject matter. The handbook explains when VAT registration becomes a requirement, when it might be desirable, and when it might require more than one entity to be recognised and registered as such. And I say that because the concept of the entity is the big thing at the moment. And I say that on the basis of alternative business structures and all the other current words that are being used to talk about how we are reorganising our business in the 21st century. I think it's also something that when it becomes a desirable requirement to VAT register, it's something you have to make a corporate decision on. The book also covers the possibilities of grouping more than one company together with deregistration and with many other practical aspects which applicants need to know about. Now, I've been through the whole system of registering and deregistering because I found it was an irrelevant, very, very time-consuming requirement for me to do, and I got no benefits out of it at all. I didn't need to do it, and I always keep below the threshold, which I think is the best way of dealing with it if you're a very small business the way I am. Otherwise, you're going to have to start employing people, which a lot of barristers do, in fact, to actually deal with all of your accounts. And if that happens, it can then cost quite a lot of money. But of course, you've got someone else looking at it, which is helpful. The only thing I would say is that do bear in mind that you're the one that has to sign everything, so you actually end up still doing all the work. So do bear that in mind. Now, in addressing all the issues, Elliott's 150-page handbook tackles such practical issues as what constitutes consideration, what constitutes a business, whether the activity is an agent or a principal, and whether two ostensibly separate businesses are in reality one business. So if you're a tax expert, whether an accountant or a lawyer advising on tax, or more generally interested as a punter, if you like, or a general reader, or certainly someone from the business community, you may well be familiar with the large number of Claritax books available on tax advice. They're brilliant for their simplicity, and they make complex subjects understandable in my view. And if you don't know about Claritax, now's the time to have a look at some of the list of books they publish, because they are very good. In the words of the publishers, the title of the Claritax books stable complement each other. It's basically what is on offer from the larger tax publishers, which Claritax have actually distilled into something that's readable and quite quick. Obviously, if you need to go to something that's much more detailed, you will need the bigger books. But for this particular exercise, these books are really first class. They're very authoritative too. And mark our words, the books, including this title, contain the most accessible and certainly business-like advice on tax that you're likely to receive or encounter. And Claritax, we think, is rather a good name, of course, for their publications. They're concise, very handy volumes, and they really do clarify in plain, precise language all the pertinent information you'll need to know across a range of highly specific areas of tax. Let me conclude by saying, as with all of the Claritax titles, they do come out frequently to see the changes in the law. Each financial year there are different tinkerings with the system. But typically, say Claritax, our books cover niche topics in greater detail or take a more practical approach to particular tax issues. They do that, but it's actually easy to read. And so it is with the latest Claritax title, VAT Registration Handbook by Graham Elliott. It's straightforward and it's practical. It's a summary of VAT registration issues which you can understand as a non-specialist. So thank you very much, Graham. I'm very grateful to you for doing the work on this. There's the book again, spine and then the back. And if we just open it in the middle, you do have, as I say, these very useful shaded box areas for examples of the sort of thing. This is defining what supplies are, and then you've got other definitions, agent or principal. Again, you've got another example there. So very much a hands-on approach. Remember the paragraph numbering. So if you're looking at the back for anything in particular, you will find a paragraph numbering helpful. And as I say, do read the details at the front, short forward, which sets out what this is all about. And of course his introduction does kick things off quite well, just explaining why the book needs to be produced in the first place. But I'm very pleased with it, and I'm very grateful to the Claritax books for taking the initiative to produce these works. They're extremely helpful to us as advisors, and of course they do actually assist the lay client. And you can say to the client, read the book. If you've come to us for advice, have a look at the book. See if you're none the wiser, we'll try and explain it. But I think it will assist. So thank you very much indeed for providing such informative material for us. Bye-bye.